Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Marlee Bonnette, filling in for Maureen today.
We'll be joined by Alejandro Rojas later in the show, and he'll fill us in on a controversial claim being made in a new documentary coming out soon. But first, Marlee and I will get you caught up on some of the news stories that have made headlines recently.
A new study suggests that the building blocks for life are common on Jupiter's moon, Europa.
Life as we know it requires an energy source to sustain metabolism. And as we mentioned on last week's show, scientists at the 44th Annual Lunar and Planetary Science Conference in the Woodlands, Texas, presented the possibility of widespread perchlorates on Mars. The prevalence of this potential energy source suggests to astrobiologists that Mars may be habitable. And similarly, a new study suggests a potential energy source may be widespread on Jupiter's moon Europa as well.
Space.com explains, an analysis of infrared observations of Europa revealed that hydrogen peroxide is abundant on the ice-covered Jovian moon. The study's lead scientist, Kevin Hand of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, explains, Europa has the liquid water and elements, and we think that compounds like peroxide might be an important part of the energy requirement. The availability of oxidants like peroxide on Earth was a critical part of the rise of complex multicellular life.
As Space.com points out, astrobiologists are excited about the extent of peroxide because it is a boon for the potential habitability of the icy moon's water ocean. When peroxide mixes with water, oxygen is released. So based on this new study, there is a real potential for life in Europa's ocean. The team's research was published in the astrophysical journal Letters.
2 polls were published last week revealing how many Americans and British Columbians believe in various conspiracy theories, including UFOs.
Results from a poll conducted by Insights West in Canada's province of British Columbia were published on April 1st, which explored the conspiracy theory beliefs of British Columbians. An incredible 52% of the citizens polled believe UFOs exist.
A similar poll in the U.S. was conducted by Public Policy Polling, and it examined how Democrats and Republicans differ on conspiracy theory beliefs. The results, published on April 2nd, reveal that 21% of voters say a UFO crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and the U.S. government covered it up, and 29% of voters believe aliens exist.
It's important to point out that new polls are conducted regularly that ask about UFO beliefs, and the results always vary, as they do with any poll. A recurring problem with many of these polls, though, is how the question is formulated. Most of these polls pose the question, do you believe in UFOs? In most cases, the true question being asked by the polls is, do you believe some UFOs are extraterrestrial? But by asking the broad question, do you believe in UFOs, the results are less likely to be a true representation of people who believe in extraterrestrial UFOs.
Scientists hypothesize that a sign of intelligent extraterrestrials could reside within the human genetic code.
A mathematician at the National University of Kazakhstan and an astrobiologist at Kazakhstan's Fezenkov Astrophysical Institute recently published a paper titled The Wow Signal of the Terrestrial Genetic Code in the planetary science journal Icarus. This title references the famous unidentified radio signal detected by SETI scientists in 1977. But rather than listening for extraterrestrial radio transmissions, these scientists considered the possibility of biological SETI.
Seeing that features in the human genetic code defy natural explanation, the team considered the possibility of an intelligent embedded signal in the code. And as Discovery News explains, the researchers believe the scheme has much greater longevity and chance of detecting ET than a transient extraterrestrial radio transmission.
The abstract of the paper states, it has been repeatedly proposed to expand the scope for SETI. And one of the suggested alternatives to radio is the biological media. Genomic DNA is already used on Earth to store non-biological information. The smaller in capacity, but stronger in noise immunity, is the genetic code. The code is a flexible mapping between codons and amino acids, and this flexibility allows modifying the code artificially. But once fixed, the code might stay unchanged over cosmological timescales. In fact, it is the most durable construct known. Therefore, it represents an exceptionally reliable storage for an intelligent signature, if that conforms to biological and thermodynamic requirements. As the actual scenario for the origin of terrestrial life is far from being settled, the proposal that it might have been seeded intentionally cannot be ruled out. A statistically strong intelligent-like signal in the genetic code is then a testable consequence of such scenario.
These scientists assert that the genetic code appears to have been invented outside of the solar system already several billion years ago. Discovery News points out that this notion endorses the idea of panspermia. Life on Earth was seeded by life that originated elsewhere in the universe.
By exploring the possibilities of biological SETI, these researchers are contemplating the typically religious notion of intelligent design, but from an extraterrestrial scientific standpoint.
On Friday, April 5th, NASA announced a new mission to aid in the search for potentially habitable worlds.
Forbes reports that NASA is granting MIT $200 million to fund the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS. The primary mission of TESS is to identify planets in the habitable zone of their parent stars, that just right distance from the sun where liquid water can exist on a planet.
NASA explains that TESS will do this by using an array of telescopes to perform an all-sky survey to discover transiting exoplanets ranging from Earth-size to gas giants in orbit around the nearest and brightest stars in the sky. This process, known as the transit method, is used by NASA's planet-hunting Kepler Space Telescope. But as George Ricker, a senior research scientist at MIT's Kavli Institute for Astrophysics and Space Research and principal investigation on the TESS project, explains, TESS will carry out the first ever spaceborne all-sky transit survey, covering 400 times as much sky as any previous mission.
The news about an upcoming documentary film generated lots of interest on OpenMinds.tv this week. Here to tell us more about what's causing all the curiosity is Alejandro Rojas. Alejandro?
All right, thanks Jason. This new documentary is called Sirius, and it focuses on the work of Dr. Stephen Greer. He is well known for bringing an impressive list of witnesses to the Washington Press Club in 2001, and really the premise was to show that the government knows all about how UFOs work, and this technology could get us off of fossil fuels. This new documentary is following up on that work, and it's actually being produced by an Emmy Award-winning documentary director. Now, to promote this film, they say they're including the analysis of what they're calling a humanoid of unknown origins. This is a 6-inch carcass that was found in the desert in Chile, and they say they've got some DNA analysis to show that it's unknown. Now, Open Minds has some exclusive background on this little creature. Our very own Antonio Huneas, who's also from Chile, was able to find some more background on how this creature was discovered in 2003. When it was first discovered, it was actually sold to a bar owner who charged people to take photographs with this little creature. So you can find out more about the background and see some pictures of this little humanoid of unknown origins at openminds.tv. Back to you, Jason.
Thanks, Alejandro. And yeah, do check out OpenMinds.tv to see these pictures because they're really interesting. Well, that's all for this episode of Spacing Out. I definitely want to thank my awesome friend Marlee for filling in today. Thank you, Marlee. And until next week's episode, OpenMinds.tv is where you can go for all the latest UFO news. OpenMinds.tv is also where you can listen to Open Minds UFO Radio or watch other Open Minds produced video content.
If you're watching the video version of the show, remember to subscribe to Open Minds YouTube channel, leave your comments below the video, and if you like this episode, click on the like button.
And feel free to leave comments for Maureen too, to let her know that you miss her. I promise she'll be back soon.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marlee Bonnette.
And I'm Jason McClellan, and I'll see you in the future.